Hey, hi, and hello, everybody. Welcome to my channel. Please come in, have a seat, get nice and cozy, and let's all have a discussion. So, today I want to talk about Pokemon. Yes, Pokemon. I am a very huge Pokemon fan. I'm a big Pokemon nerd. And today I wanted to talk about Pokemon types. Primarily, our Pokemon types, like our personal Pokemon types, like what Pokemon types that we are. Ever since I was a kid, I've always loved labeling things through types. Like my friends, I would say, oh, my friend is a fire type, or my other friend is a water type. I'm an electric type. uh, my other friend is like a dual grass, like grass and dark type. And I just really love the idea of giving applying Pokemon types to people and things and characters. And today, that's exactly what I want to do with us, with myself, with you guys, and yeah. So, right off the bat, um, if you were to ask me, say, like 10 years ago, maybe 10 or plus years ago, back when I was in school, I would have told you that I was like an electric type because back then, electric types were one of my favorite Pokemon types. Back then, I always considered myself to have like a upbeat and cheerful personality, almost electrifying, and that's pretty much the reason why I would consider myself an electric type back then. Also, I would sometimes, like depending on the day, I would consider myself dark just because, oh, I'm dark and edgy. I was like one of those kids back then, dark, edgy, all that. So yeah, like electric, dark were my types back in the day. Fast forward a few years, and nowadays I consider myself a fairy type. Uh, Fairy types have really grown on me over the last few years. I just really like I see myself as kind of like a I don't know like a fairy-ish kind of person, you know, kind of like light and kind, gentle. Uh, those are some aspects I would associate with the fairy type, and associate those things with myself. So there's the fairy type. Also, I really do. I like fairy type Pokemon. I've always loved the idea of being like a fairy type gym leader, and just you know, it's just like fairy types have really. It resonates with me. It resonates with me, and a uh, a prime not the primary, sorry, secondary typing to my fairy if I were a dual type would be dark. Again, I know, it's like, oh, so you're still edgy. Yeah, a tiny sort of kind of bit, but more so how I see it, at least nowadays, is like I have two kinds of there's two kinds of people about me. There's like the person on the outside who's like nice and kind, little frilly, you know, and then you have the guy on the inside who's kind of like more cynical, a bit edgy, not in the traditional sense, I think. Just someone who's a little bit more uh, withdrawn and cynical, because I do kind of have a cynical view of things. It's one of like it's something that I kind of struggle with, looking on the optimistic side of things, and that's a aspect of myself that I kind of keep within, and I don't really show to a lot of people. So, yeah. So there's fairy and then there's dark, because on the outside, I'm nice and kind, but on the inside I'm a little bit more cynical of people and situations. So recently, a friend introduced me to this online quiz by somebody named Professor Bonsley on itch.io called Pokedex Accurate Dual Type Pokemon Personality Type Test. And essentially, it's a typing test. It's a personality test you take, and it will determine your personality in relation to a Pokemon type. I already took the test, so you don't have to worry about, me taking it over in this video or anything and making the video longer. But if you guys want to take the test, I have a link to it in the description down below, and you guys can take it and share your results with me. If you want to, that is. I was really curious about what type I would be according to this test. Of course, I really want to be fairy type. I really want to be fairy and dark type. And, I was honest with my answers. I would, say I would answer questions, based on who I am as a person and not what I thought would be like fairy. And ultimately, in the end, I did end up getting the fairy type. My results are, for monotype, are fairy, and then for the secondary type, I got fairy and ghost, actually, which is a little bit surprising to me. But yeah, it's really cool. I'm really happy that I got fairy. But the ghost typing is a little interesting. It's a little interesting because I don't really consider myself a ghost type. When I think of ghost types, I think of, I don't know, maybe like a little mysterious. It's kind of similar to the dark typing, but not really. And like ghost types are just like there for me. I'm not like the biggest ghost type fan. But yeah, ghost, very interesting. At least for me to have. You know what I mean. So with each type here, there's a little description talking about the type and how it relates to your personality. So let's read that. Fairy types have a reputation for being irrepressibly helpful, sweet, and creative, and also having secret inner lives that aren't always shared. They are often lost in a world of ideas and creativity, and as such, they rarely focus on their physical health or strength, and are prone to feeling fragile. Jeez. They know that they have a limited amount of energy, and so they need to be very careful about who they allow into their lives. Once someone is trusted, fairy types are much more likely to share their secrets and talents. I would say that pretty much sums me up to a T. Like, for real, it really does. I love being helpful. I feel like I come off as kind of sweet, sweet as in kind, nice and kind. And I feel like I'm kind of creative, at least I think so. I also feel like I do have my own inner world, my own secret inner life. And by that I mean, like, in my mind, like I have a whole world of my own that I kind of close myself in when things are stressful or upsetting. Like sometimes, like, have you ever like retreated into your mind for comfort or to feel something familiar when you're in a situation that feels foreign or stressful or anxiety inducing? That's kind of me. That's something that I do often. Is it a good thing to do? I'm not entirely sure. I don't think so, but I mean, it's something that I do. And, as the description says, having a secret inner life or inner world that you don't really share with anybody. And, my inner world, I don't really share with nobody, like, period. Like I mentioned, I do feel like I'm kind of creative. Again, that's up to debate. Maybe I'm not as creative as I think I am, but I do feel it. And however, I don't think I let that get in the way of my physical health and my strength. I mean, there are other things that could get in the way of my physical health, but creativity wise, I'm not really so sure about that. However, I am fragile, I feel. I do feel like a fragile spirit from time to time. Like, it doesn't take a lot to, like, kind of set me off sometimes. And yeah, my energy is very limited. Well, my social energy, that is. How I interpret the line that says they know that they have a limited amount of energy, and so they need very careful about who they allow into their lives. Yeah, that line, that sets me to a T, because when it comes to social situations, or my social energy, it depletes, and it depletes fast. And I'm very, very careful who I let into like my personal inner circle. Like I'm a very guarded person, and in social situations drain me, like to like some like drain me fast. So it's really hard to kind of like make connections sometimes with people, and yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's true. And again, um, I'm a very guarded person, so I don't let people into my like inner circle that easily. But when I do let somebody in, I'm kind of an open book. You know, I'll bring you in with open arms if I feel you can be trusted, and you know, and that could lead to situations, but uh, but no, awkward situations, but it's very much true. The last line, you know, I'm kind of, you know, once you're in, you're kind of locked in. Now for the fairy primary of the dual typing, um, so it says here, fairy primaries generally share the kindness and generosity of other fairy types, but with a greater emphasis on creativity and an even looser interest or ability to maintain their own physical health. Jeez, man. Fairy primaries often prefer to work on things slowly, steadily, consistently, and carefully, and are more likely than their monotype counterparts to not stop until their work is done. To outsiders, they frequently appear to be mysterious and aloof, partially because they tend to be guarded around others until they determine that someone is worthy of seeing them. Overall, I do agree with this description of the fairy type. Um, I think it says me like to a T in some parts. The first line is a little weird, with how, you know, not really giving interest to one's own physical health, which I guess it could work out a little bit more, but it's still a weird line to me. However, the last line, it's I say it speaks to me the most, with how being guarded and not letting anybody in, being mysterious and aloof, and you know, not really seeing a lot of people worthy of bringing them into like your inner circle. Again, I know I keep saying it, but you know, I am a very guarded person, and you know, sometimes it can be difficult to bring people into my circle or allow people like within, you know, my friend group thing. And now for the ghost typing, like the ghost dual typing of my overall dual type. Um, let's see what it says. Ghost secondaries share the emotional detachment that all ghost types have, but their responses to this feeling is much more gentle. While they may rely on outside validation, they typically get less fixated on specific people. They're much less manipulative, and they're genuinely less harmful to others, despite their occasional imposing presence. A ghost secondary's detachment is often focused more around themselves, as they tend to feel even less connection with their bodies than their monotype counterparts, with a more fluid identity around others. They're also likely to have a strong routine as a way to keep consistency in an often undergrounded world. The ghost type secondary is a little polarizing to me, just a little bit, because I feel like it doesn't really like jive with me. You know, like I'm looking it over, and like I really don't see myself in this description. Um, yeah, unfortunately, yeah, I'm not a ghost type person, but but maybe I am. Who knows? But that's not all, my friends, because we have the Pokedex. In addition to your monotype and your dual typing, you also get a Pokedex entry along with your stats and abilities. For those who may not know or aren't familiar with Pokemon, In the Pokemon games, each Pokemon has different stats that make up their power, and each Pokemon has an ability. They can have one ability, two abilities, or three abilities, with the last one being a hidden ability. And that's what we have here today. So, for my first Pokedex description, it says isolates. You prefer to spend time alone, whether you do it out of safety, like burrowing or retreating into a shell, or focus, like training alone on a mountaintop, or personal preference, like living on an island that only has your kind on it. Field researchers often feel guilty for bothering you. I would say this 100% describes me to like an absolute T. I isolate. I isolate myself so much. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm saying it like out of pride, but it's nothing to be proud about. Not really. Um, I have a tendency to isolate myself, and sometimes it can be okay, when I just want to be alone or whatever, but more often than not, I do it and then I get really lonely and then I kind of can't get out of it because, like of my tendencies to kind of just keep myself away from others. So it's kind of like a vicious cycle sometimes. But as far as this description goes, I would say that it describes me to a T. Like, I really like what it says. The next description, skilled. You are capable of performing specific actions with accuracy and precision, whether it's required for survival, like intercepting prey from high in the air, or just a matter of pride, like feeling the need to sing perfectly. Pokemon like you often make popular performers among humans. For this description, I kind of get what it's saying. It's like you're a skilled person. You take pride in, being skilled and kind of a perfectionist, which I am. I'm a huge perfectionist. I feel like things need to be perfect. And if they're not perfect, then I'm doing something absolutely wrong, and it's like, why am I even trying to begin with? But but I that for that part I agree with. But the skilled part, not so much, because I really don't feel like I'm skilled at anything. It's a little weird. I'm obsessed with being perfect, but I'm not really skilled or talented in many things or anything. So I don't know, it's a little weird. But yeah. Yeah. And for the last one, cunning, which I personally find hilarious. Your interactions with people or other Pokemon routinely involve lying, cheating, and stealing. Whether that's a matter of survival or really funny, deception is less of a tool to you and more of a lifestyle. Now, this description is a little out there. Um, it's a little wild, but I kind of see where it's coming from. Now, when it says about like lying, cheating, and stealing, like, I'm not going around lying and cheating and stealing. However, how I interpret this is kind of like, you know, like about like wearing a mask, right? When you go out into public and you talk with a bunch of different people, you kind of, wear a mask to hide like your true self, you know, like the person you are. You show to, like, a group of mutual coworkers isn't the same person that you would show to your friends or family. And that's kind of how I see like this cunning description. It's like when I go out there, I'm kind of like putting on a mask. I guess you could say I'm lying, or I'm deceiving, or being deceptive. I'm not sure if that's a word. But essentially that's kind of how I see it, because when I do go out there, when I do meet people, I kind of, like, give like a version of myself that's kind of half baked, kind of. Like, it's not like the whole me. Like, if you want the whole me, then you're going to have to enter my personal circle. And as we discussed, doing that isn't very easy for myself. So finally, let's talk about these stats. So I have my stats up on the screen right now, and if you're familiar with Pokemon, um, you're probably already going like, wow, this guy sucks. And it's true, my stats are kind of abysmal, at least to me. So let's look at it here. So my HP is 55, my attack is 95, my defense is 40, my special attack is 115, which is not too bad. My special defense is 95, and my speed is 55. So, like right off the top of my head, um, my HP and my speed are like terrible, and my defense is worse. Now, I have a high special attack stat, and that can be useful. It can be useful. However, like I have really bad speed, so I'm not like outspeeding anybody. So what's the next best thing? Well, to be a tank, right? You take hits and you can dish them. However, I have low HP and I have low defense. My special defense is 95, which isn't, I mean, it's not terrible, but it could be a lot higher than 95. So, like realistically, what am I trying to achieve here? Like on the battlefield, it's like I have a high special attack, but I can't really utilize it well because I have low speed and I have low HP and low defenses. So it's like I can't really do much with it. You know what I mean? I mean, if you're a Pokemon fan, like if you're into like competitive battling, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, I kind of suck as a Pokemon. And then for the abilities, um, they're also very weird. For my first ability, I have Magician. So it says here, if you're hit with a damaging move, you will steal the held item of your attacker, which is pretty cool. It's a cool ability. I know that Delphox has it as a hidden ability, I believe. And I think Klefki has it too. I don't quote me on that one, but for a fact I know the Finnegan line has this ability, and I've used it before. It's kind of cool. It's cool to steal your opponent's item. However, it's like in a competitive sense, like how is this useful? Because when you're going into battle, you want to be holding an item, unless you're using a consumable item, and in that case, then um, Magician can be useful. But ultimately, Magician is not that useful in battle, just from personal experience. Then you have the second ability, which is Magic Guard, which is a little bit better, honestly. I kind of like it. Um, so it says here, you only take damage from direct attacks and not status conditions, weather or recoil. So essentially, you can only, like it says, you take direct attacks only. So you can't be um, damaged by poison, burn, weather, like hail, sandstorm, leech seed, I believe. Yep. So that's a really good ability. It's a great ability on a defensive Pokemon, like say a tank, or a special wall or a physical wall. However, for myself, in this context, you know, I can't really utilize Magic Guard because of my low defenses. Because in my mind I'm thinking of Clefable. If you're a competitive, Pokemon battler, then you know what Clefable can do, and and I'm no Clefable. I want to be Clefable so bad, but I can't be with these, bad defensive stats. And I have no hitting ability. No hitting ability at all. I don't know why, but I guess I don't have one. Oh well. And there you have it. My Pokemon typing. Um, yeah, it's very interesting. It's really cool. I'm happy with the fairy type. Not so happy with the ghost type, and you know, not happy with my stats. But I mean, it is what it is, and overall, I'm happy with like the fact that I'm a fairy. I love being a fairy type. So yeah. So how about you guys? Did you guys take this quiz? What are your responses? Please let me know in the comments below. I would love to see what you guys got. And with that, I'll bid all of you a farewell. I myself am leaving the room. You guys can stay here and chill out. I might be back later to have another discussion. And yeah, until next time, see you guys later. Bye.